Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome back to Pagan Tales. We are talking about Ra and continuation of our series having to do with solar deities this month. So Ra, in some ways, as far as ancient antiquity, he's probably the oldest solar deity that people have some sense of familiarity with. Most people have heard of him. He is the Egyptian sun god, and he is also considered to be the king of the gods. He is the ruler of the entire created world, the sky, the earth, the underworld. He's considered to be a god of order. And he's depicted, as you can see in this illustration, as with a falcon head with the sun sitting on top of that head. This is one of the things that actually makes him distinct from representations of the god Horus. Horus often is shown with the falcon head, but Horus won't have the sun above him. Ra is known very much for being the defender of Earth against Apophis, who wants to bring darkness and chaos and destruction, and Ra keeps him away for us. And Ra is sometimes also referred to as Re, and either form of his name it literally means sun. So, let's get into Ra's identity. He is perhaps the oldest known Egyptian deity, and over time he was merged with other deities, and it created these titles of Ra Horakati, the morning sun. This would, of course, be a combination of Ra and Horus. Then Amun Ra as the noonday sun, combining Amun and Ra, and then Autumn Ra, the evening sun, combining Autumn and Ra. Now, are these different faces of Ra? Are these distinct deities that ancient peoples conflated when perhaps they shouldn't have? That's something that I will leave to you to make your own conclusions about. If you're interested, do your own research. It takes a lot of twists and turns with that one. Now let's talk about his family. Ra in the lore is either considered to be a completely self-created deity, or he's just one step removed from creation. And in the tales where he is, one down from creation, he's considered to have a mother called Nath, who's known as the Terrifying One. She is a creatrix goddess, and she is the goddess also of weaving. And so weaving, oftentimes you will find that deities that have something to do with weaving, this also has a lot to do with the weaving of time and even the weaving of fate. So something to take into consideration if you do more research on this line. Then Ra auto-created, meaning he self-generated children. The first was called Shu, god of the air, and the second is Tefnut, goddess of the mist. And then with other deities that came further down the line, as with all of the other pantheons, there was a little bit of family bush where instead of a family tree. But ultimately, Ra is considered to be the father of all of the gods. So whoever it is, they can usually trace their lineage right back to Ra. And one of his title is God of Kings because Ra is considered to have been the first pharaoh of Egypt and then therefore thereafter the father of all pharaohs, either literally or figuratively. I will leave that for you to decide. But after he retired, in a sense, from directly ruling mankind, he wasn't going to be, as present on Earth day in, day out, handling all of these issues and keeping order. He then departed, left a successor, and he focused entirely upon keeping Apophis at bay, which I suppose, after dealing with the humans for so long, probably felt like a vacation. But after this point, it was human rulers who were then made responsible for maintaining proper order, because the Egyptian ethos is very much based upon there's a lot of chaos, and if there's going to be order, it's going to be up to you to create it. So there's nothing passive about that particular aspect of Egyptian religion, either ancient or modern. Then there's Ma'at. Ra was known to have a very special bond with Ma'at. Some sources actually describe her as being his favorite daughter. And the pharaohs who succeeded Ra, they were actually intended to uphold Ma'at's principles and ultimately be her champion. And so much was this the case that after death, pharaohs were judged by how well they performed that particular task. Now, before we go, I want to leave you with a few correspondences that have to do with Ra so that you have something to work with if you decide to research him further. And the zodiac, he is linked with both Aries and Leo. Aries in the form of the warrior, which, he is the warrior fighting off Apophis. And of course, Leo, it makes sense to associate Ra with Leo because of he is essentially the embodiment of the sun, and the sun, Leo, is ruled by the sun. Of course, in the solar system, he's tied with the sun. For trees, it's acacia, cedar, laurel, and olive. And I believe these are all trees that are pretty common to that Mediterranean world, or at least they were a bit more common at that time. Then with flowers, the heliotrope and the lotus, resins, frankincense and myrrh, crystals, tiger's eye and topaz, metals, brass and gold for, I think, obvious reasons. They're very yellowy, very shiny, very sun-like. The animals, he was linked with cats, and it's worth pointing out that one of his known consorts was Bast. And then also with cattle, and that also brings in connection with Hathor, who was pictured as having a cow's head. The reptile, the snake, the pharaohs with their crowns and diadems, it wasn't uncommon for them to have serpents on top of that. So that's also a signal of royalty and rulership. And the birds, the falcon, because he's said to have the head of a falcon, but also he's linked with the goose, the hawk, and the swallow. And the insects, the bee and the beetle, specifically scarab beetles. And mythologically, he's tied in with the phoenix of rising up from those ashes. And this symbol that we have right here is the Eye of Ra. The other one is the Eye of Horus, going the other direction. Now, for offerings, for incense, if you're going to burn something for Ra, frankincense, myrrh, or kaifi. Kaifi, you're going to have to look up recipes. You have to go put forth some effort to actually make it, but it was something that was known to be burned during the Egyptian period. Offerings of water, candlelight, bread, fruits, beer, poultry, traditional linen. I would assume this would be linen that is traditionally manufactured, gold, other fine metals, prayers, song, and spoken mythology, telling his stories in a more ritualized fashion. These are all things that you could be giving to him if you decide to reach out and form a connection with him. So I hope that whet your appetite regarding the Egyptian god Ra. He is a very interesting figure. And of course, thankfully, because the Egyptians had the manners to write things down for us, we do generally have a bit more information to work with when it comes to their deities as opposed to those of Northern Europe. So if you are interested, I don't think you'll be too badly off for research materials. And so have fun. In the meantime, let me know what you think about all of this. And if you have had any experiences with Ra, or he's someone that you've considered working with, I would love to hear about that in the comments. But until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye.